In this video, I'm going to reveal 7 of my favorite Bordeaux that sell for around $50 per bottle. There's right bank and left bank wines, and a number of different appellations represented, so there should be something for everyone. Located in Saint-Emilion on Bordeaux's right bank, Bellefont-Belcier owns around 13.5 hectares of vineyards that are ideally situated on Saint-Emilion's south-facing slopes. Bellefont-Belcier offers extremely high quality for the price. There was an ownership change back in 2016, and that served as a catalyst for increased quality of this wine. Among other things, they had a change in winemaking philosophy, and beginning in 2017, they reduced the amount of new French oak used for maturation from 80% down to 40% new French oak. In 2018, this dropped still further to around 30% new French oak for the maturation of these wines. The result was an emphasis on the purity of the fruit and much more elegant wines and wines of finesse, which are what you'd expect from Saint-Emilion. You really can't go wrong with any of their vintages from 2018 through the present. The 2020 is on store shelves now and was quite strong, and they even did a nice job with a challenging 21 vintage. However, my strongest recommendation is for the 2022 Bellefont-Belcier, which is available on futures now for as little as $44 per bottle. The 2022 Bellefont-Belcier was extremely highly regarded and well received by critics, with 3 95-point scores and even a 98-point score for Mr. Suckling. In 2022, Bellefont-Belcier consists of 72% Merlot, 18% Cabernet Franc, and then the rest of it is Cabernet Sauvignon. So this one is an absolute no-brainer at around $44 per bottle on futures. I know that many of you are big fans of Pontet-Canet, but the same Tesseron family that owns Pontet-Canet and is responsible for the turnaround in quality at that estate also purchased Saint-Estèphe-based Lafon-Rochet back in the 1960s. At the time of that acquisition, Lafon-Rochet was in complete disarray, and the vineyards had to be substantially overhauled, and even the chateau was built in the 20th century. There's around 41 hectares of vineyards that average about 37 years of age, but they do have some impressive old vine Merlot that averages around 80 years of age. Lafon-Rochet is in a high-class neighborhood, as its neighbors include Lafite Rothschild and Costas Dornell. They also did a bit of an overhaul and renovation in the winemaking facility a few years ago, and so there's been an uptick in quality recently, beginning with the 2015 vintage. The 2020 vintage is also quite strong, and that's the one that you should be able to find on store shelves now. That vintage consists of 61% Cabernet Sauvignon, about 1/3 Merlot, and then there are also small amounts of Cabernet Franc and Petit Verdot included as well. This is definitely a wine that benefits from a few additional years of bottle age, but it's probably one that you should consume within the next 10 to 12 years. The next top Bordeaux for $50 per bottle is Langoa Barton. Langoa Barton was classified as a third growth in the 1855 classification of Bordeaux. They use the exact same winemaking team as Langoa Barton to produce their wines. Langoa Barton has long been recognized, and justifiably so, as a producer that over-delivers and sells very high-quality wines at a very reasonable price point. The 2020 vintage was particularly strong, and although Langoa Barton has a reputation as being a wine that you need to age for a substantial period of time before you enjoy it, the 2020 is one that you'll be pleased to hear can be enjoyed with a few more years of additional bottle age, and it will cruise in your cellar for a couple decades. The 2020 vintage is a little bit more than half Cabernet Sauvignon, has 38% Merlot, and it also has a little bit of Cabernet Franc in the blend. This is definitely one of the strongest vintages ever made for this high-quality producer located in Saint-Julien, so it's definitely one that I highly recommend that you try. The winery that produces the next top wine for $50 per bottle is a 5th classified growth in the 1855 classification of Bordeaux, and it traces its history way back to 1810. At that time, it was created by land that was purchased from the Grand Puy estate. And this was a time when the Grand Puy estate had not yet been separated to form Grand Puy Lacoste and Grand Puy Ducasse. Chateau Pédesclaux has around 49 hectares of vineyards that average about 35 years of age. Their plots are scattered around a little bit, but some of their best vines are located near Lafite. While this winery was producing mediocre and uninspiring wine for decades, quality has skyrocketed recently, beginning about with the 2015 vintage. That's the time when a complete overhaul of the winemaking facilities took effect, and in addition, they've implemented optical sorting equipment, which has dramatically increased the stringency of the selection and increased the quality of the fruit used to produce their wine. Beginning with the 2022 vintage, the Pédesclaux wines will be certified organic. The 2020 vintage was highly acclaimed and is available in the market now. This is a wine that consists of around 59% Cabernet Sauvignon, 36% Merlot, and it also includes small amounts of Petit Verdot and Cabernet Franc. Those of you who lack patience will also be pleased to note that this is one of the classified growth wines that you can enjoy when it's fairly young. I definitely recommend giving it 3 to 5 years of additional bottle age, but you should be able to enjoy it after that. If you're interested in wine recommendations, wine collecting strategies, and learning more about wine, please do subscribe to my channel. I've been collecting wine for more than 15 years and also have a level 4 diploma from the WSET. So I have both formal certification as well as substantial practical knowledge from the School of Hard Knocks. The next Bordeaux for $50 a bottle comes from another producer that's located on Bordeaux's right bank in Saint-Emilion. This is from a producer that traces its history way back to 1696. More recently, however, there was an ownership change in 1998, and this was significant because the new owners completely renovated the winemaking facility and also replanted about half of the vineyard. During that replanting process, they increased the percentage of Cabernet Franc. And so now their 6 1/4 hectares of vineyard holdings comprise of around 75% Merlot and 25% Cabernet Franc. Around this same time, they also began to vinify on a parcel-by-parcel basis, which further increased the quality. La Prieur's director is very talented and used to work for Chateau Latour. She's been applying what she learned at First Growth Bordeaux producer Chateau Latour to La Prieur's winemaking and also viticultural practices, and this has further accelerated the quality increase for La Prieure. The 2020 vintage is particularly strong and received some high scores from critics. This is one that will definitely benefit from another few years of bottle age, but it's an absolute no-brainer for a high-quality right bank wine at around $50 per bottle. The next top wine for $50 per bottle comes from a producer that's located in Pessac-Léognan. This producer was acquired back in the late 1990s, and the new owners at that time poured more than 20 million euros into modernizing the estate, overhauling the winemaking facilities, and replanting the vineyards. Following the replanting, the vineyard holdings increased dramatically from 19 hectares to around 53 hectares of vines. They also implemented a number of initiatives designed to increase quality, such as using gravity flow techniques in the winery, which help to make wines of more elegance and finesse. And they also used a more strict selection of fruit, and a lot of the fruit that used to go into the top wine now goes into the second wine. And in the vineyard, they also started to use sustainable farming practices. These initiatives have all paid off handsomely, and the quality at Malartic-Lagraviere has never been higher than it is today. The 2020 vintage is particularly strong. This vintage consists of 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 48% Merlot, and 2% Cabernet Franc. It's matured in 65% New French Oak for around 18 months or so. The 2020 vintage is an extremely elegant, balanced wine with a dark fruit profile that was well received by critics. It will certainly benefit from another couple more years in the bottle, but you can definitely enjoy it over the next 15 to 18 years or so thereafter. The next top Bordeaux for $50 a bottle comes from a producer that's located in Pauillac on Bordeaux's left bank, and which is a 5th classified growth in the 1855 classification of Bordeaux. Haut-Bages Libéral has around 30 hectares of vines that average about 35 years of age. Their vineyard is planted to 75% Cabernet Sauvignon and 1/4 Merlot. Haut-Bages Libéral was certified both organic and biodynamic beginning with the 2019 vintage, and the 2019 and 2020 vintages are definitely two of the very strongest vintages ever produced by this estate. The 2022 futures are also extremely promising, and so you really can't go wrong with any of those three vintages, all of which should be available in the marketplace currently at around $50 per bottle, or even a bit less than that. The wines will typically mature in around 40% new French oak for about 14 to 16 months, and they also mature about 20% of the wine in amphora. I will caution you, however, that this one does have plenty of structure on it, and it's definitely a candidate for the cellar. It will improve with 6 to 10 years of additional bottle age. It probably will peak after about 10 years of age, and it will cruise in the cellar for another couple decades thereafter. If you're a fan of Bordeaux wines like I am, and you'd like to see more of my Bordeaux videos, please be sure to check out the playlist that's linked above.